Okay. Well, everyone, thank you so much for coming tonight. And let me scroll down and see all of the people. Oh, so many people are here tonight. I am so thrilled. Thank you very much. This is an important training and it's really straightforward. And I think a lot of you come to this training with a lot of this knowledge already. I don't know if all of our entrants do. So one of the nice things about offering this competition is that our judges can gently point out where within an entry accessibility may be strong or lacking. And gently is very important because we certainly don't want to come across as accessibility is like the number one aspect of good technical communication. It's actually a very important aspect and dear to my heart, but it's not the only one. And so when we look at all of our criteria for judging an entry, accessibility is just one of the pages of it. And the way that we're approaching it this year in the competition, which is a sort of an escalation from previous year, so it's not saying it's like the best way we can evaluate accessibility, but we're only going to look at electronic entries and their accessibility. And then hopefully if you do receive a print entry, because I do know that Bixie entered another large book or two, very long, and we're going to have to rely on John's training from last year about how to tackle a really large entry. But in any case, what I mean is we're certainly going to be evaluating print entries from the perspective of how well can this information be consumed, and we may be internalizing some accessibility features of the print entry without really having a separate page for that. So the page within the within our criteria is just for electronic entries for accessibility. But I want to introduce Ann Wiley. Ann is in Rochester, New York. She has a PhD. She is a longtime trainer and expert in many different aspects of, I think quality is one of your specialties, and other, well, I would let Ann speak for herself, but in any case, her history. But I know Ann very well. She's a good friend of mine. She's a mentor to me. We worked together for many years, and I'm very happy to have her delivering this presentation tonight. And you guys all already know me. I'm Carolyn. I am managing this competition along with Malu and Phoebe and Mike Nelson and a number of people here on the call who have different roles in the competition. So thank you all for being here tonight. And with that, I think I'm going to make sure I can progress the slides. So Ann, do you feel comfortable just kicking off either with an introduction to yourself or I don't know if there's anything more to say on this slide. We may need to proceed, but I'm going to turn it over to you.
So I'm going to actually look at a larger screen, which means I'm not going to be looking at you, which is
Okay.
very rude. I know that, but I'll allow you to watch me looking at the larger screen. Carolyn and I have been very good friends for a long time, and well before we worked for the National Cancer Institute together, but I don't remember when we actually first started collaborating, but it was online, and it was a long time ago, sometime in the last 22 years, but it was a good long time back. And Carolyn and I share a passion for accessibility, and I do make everything when it goes out of my office as accessible to the extent that I can make it that way. I recently began working with a company that had an authoring system in place. Very unfortunately did not support alt text. I nearly lost what's left of my hair, but I didn't. I just bravely discovered that you could put captions on the pictures, so I made do with that until the company finally, the vendor finally added alt text. So now I'm just doing that to images, and somewhat retroactively also. I always make everything as accessible as I can because I figure there, but for the grace of God go I, and that applies to all forms of disability. I'm sure we've all had at least a temporary spell of some form of disability, or we know someone very well who does. And so I try to put myself in their shoes. And So we are having this training because we hope very much that we can impart a little bit of passion for accessibility to our entrants, and but by no means are we taking away credit from the entries for a lack of accessibility, because many people don't know how to do this, and they also aren't required. And so we have to look at our job, and we do have to figure out, when we look at an entry, how in the world people intended to deliver this. And then we evaluate the accessibility if the entry is electronic, and look at the work as a whole. And we will take a look at some sample accessibility comments. And now by no means are you expected necessarily to be able to read this, although if Carolyn's doing the slideshow, so I've just dismissed some of you from the side panel. But you have when you look at your entry form, you will see that the delivery medium for the audience is now specified. And this is the entrants can specify that they either have an online print or both print and online entry. And then there is a second question that they have to answer on the entry form, and that is a different question, and that is what form did you submit this in? So we can see a print entry, for example, that's intended for print, but we might get a PDF. And so we have to take into consideration that in that case, that the person never intended this to be an accessible Acrobat document or accessible PDF document, because they are delivering a print book. And so we have to be sensitive to both the intention of the person who created the piece and the form in which they have delivered it to us, and balance those two. And Carolyn has a wonderful guide, which she has written out extensively, and it covers the points in this presentation. She has distributed the link, and we can add it again to the chat when we have our capabilities back to do that. And I do encourage you to read that. And also I encourage you, if you have never worked with accessibility in any way before, or haven't very much, I encourage you to take plenty of time to read that. But also, if you do have questions or concerns as you are learning this, please reach out to me or to Carolyn, either one, either by email or on the STC Slack, and I'll answer your questions and be more than happy to do that. We are going to be looking at whether images have alt text or alternative text, and we will talk about why we do that. The much more challenging aspect of accessibility is to provide alternative ways for people to see the content and hear the content of audio and video materials. And we will be looking at size of type and color contrast. Carolyn says that they seem suitable for users with low vision. Let's make that they're readable, because what's suitable for users of low vision is normally what makes it really easy for us to read too. And the information is not communicated ever by just color, but also some type of tagging with a phrase or two, or some other indication of the meaning. And if the entry is a PDF, it contains the mysterious PDF tags, which do a world of wonderful things behind the scenes in a PDF document. Now, when we evaluate whether or not an entry has alternative text or alt text, we have to remember that if you are browsing a website using a screen reader, that is your agent. Your agent is a browser. If you have eyesight, it is a screen reader if you do not have eyesight. And the screen readers always look to the alt text and always speak the alt text. It always loads, it's there in the browser, but it also serves to provide some metadata. So it enhances search both within the document, if the search engine is really sophisticated in the document, but it enhances web search tremendously. We have a tool in Acrobat to do an assessment of alternative text, whether or not it is present. And if there is a problem with the alt text, in the report, in the output report from that tester within Acrobat, you will see something like alternate text to issues. And this means that 2 of the images do not have alt text. That's what that always means. And I think we're going to go on to the audio and video. Now, audio and video is much more challenging to make accessible, partly because it is somewhat, to those of us who can see and hear, more abstract even than images. text alternatives are always needed so that people can read audio content and read it with a Braille reader if necessary. And there must be captions in the frame of a video, and typically we click, I think we all know now, the CC icon. You know, you can see that on Facebook Live, all of the different live streaming platforms, in order to see the closed captions at the bottom of the video. And also we must provide a transcript in a separate file, and typically those are generated, and so they are in the form .srt, which is text. And Carolyn has finally enlightened me as to what this means. It means sub-rip subtitle. And I do want you to know that there will be a quiz at the end of the competition, and we must all, well, maybe we can look up a song or even a cheer of some kind with this phrase. And when it comes to type size and color contrast, as I say, if you can read it easily, really easily, people with low vision will struggle to read it, but they will have a chance, or with their magnifying equipment, they will be able to blow it up enough to read it. You must have enough to contrast with the background so that you can see the content easily, especially with low vision. And black on white or white on black is going to always be your best option for that. You are using your own judgment to check the contrast, but there are tools to use for objective evaluation, and very strict accessibility guidelines do require that you use a color contrast checker, and that outputs numbers which then are on a scale, and you can determine based on the requirements of your situation what those numbers need to be. But for this, we are going to use our own best judgment. It's subjective. Never communicate information through color alone. And I must say that this little diagram is a bit mysterious to me, but it's clear to me why one is accessible and the other isn't. People who are colorblind cannot see different colors, and particularly they can't see red and green as different. And I understand, and I don't know, but it looks brown to both look brown to people. So you have to show differences with shapes and icons and text and contrast and spacing and anything that you can think of that's appropriate in the situation. But here in this case, we see that we have, if we are not colorblind, we see that we have 2 green dots and a red one on the right-hand not accessible side, and on the left-hand side, we not only have words telling us what the middle dot means, but it is without shading, so that the two will look relatively dark to everyone that are green, and then we will have the clear one. And we discover that that means that it was last seen 5 minutes ago, which I think also is very profound. Now, in PDF documents for a long time were very mysterious to me, because everything about accessibility really happens behind the scenes, as it were. When you look at a PDF document, and if you have eyesight, you will see the document. It looks like any other printed document, perhaps with some pictures, perhaps not. But under the covers, as it were, there are tags in this document, and there is in the full Acrobat application, and I think in some other applications also, a tag reader. And you can find that easily. It has a small tag icon, which when you click it, displays the tags. So you can see these tags, and they really resemble HTML markup in some ways. They're a similar type of markup. They give a similar type of appearance. And if there are no tags in your document, then to a person who cannot see, who has no vision, that document is just a box with no content. It's an empty box or a black box. The document has no way to communicate with the person. Fortunately, many authoring platforms generate tags automatically, and when a PDF is generated, those tags appear in the PDF document without any particular intervention on your part, as long as you use headings to keep the document reasonably structured. InDesign, there's a little more manual work to do than Microsoft Word, but fundamentally, if you have properly structured your Microsoft Word document with a headings 1, 2, and 3, and so forth, you will find that your document is well tagged, not only tagged, but well tagged, well structured. Any tags are better than no tags, because people use the tags as just a clue as to what might actually be in this otherwise great big empty file. And you can use this dialogue to see whether or not there are tags, but you can also click the left sidebar and look for the tags and also for the bookmarks and other facilities to navigate through the PDF document. Again, if you have never worked with this before, it is quite an adventure. Carolyn could tell you about my adventures in learning about this, but it's something that I'm very happy to help you with. So please ask questions anytime. You will be evaluating, of course, we will all be evaluating the work as a whole. There are many things to consider. Accessibility is one consideration. We have to remember that not all companies require accessibility, although I advise everyone to make everything as accessible as possible anyway. For one thing, remediation is the worst task in the world. I think I hold the record for remediating documents for the Health and Human Services Department of the US government, and it is not a record that I enjoyed winning at all. It's very hard on you. It goes on for hours and hours and hours. But when you offer advice about accessibility, it's always best to offer gentle advice that you have a passion for this and you hope the other people will have a passion for it too, is a good way to put it, I think. And don't scold them and say, how can you treat people this way? You didn't make your document accessible. That would be highly inappropriate, not only on the part of judges, but as we know, on the part of colleagues. We do not do this. So Carolyn, I think you have some nice comments, some examples of comments. And the judges in the past have said things like the color choices in the two note types are also differentiated by icons, helping colorblind users, but not visually impaired users. And then this judge evidently said, as you did not add alt text to these icons. Well, I think I would say as the icons lack alt text. I think I would put it that way. The transposed chemistry table zooms in when clicked. This feature is definitely helpful to readers in general and for readers with low vision more specifically. Some icons may benefit from a tooltip or label. For example, the following icon may have the label Manager Action, and so on. So these are just examples that Carolyn has also placed in the guidebook that will give us an idea, that do give us an idea as to how we might offer comments about accessibility. And I will.
Yeah, you don't have to read all of them.
We can read them on our own later.
Yeah. These are actual comments that I found in our judging. Actually, I think that's the end of that. Yeah, that's our last slide.
That is the last slide. So I was thinking, Carolyn, maybe we could all have a little session where we kind of get to know each other a little bit and
sure,
and discuss our experiences and maybe other questions too about judging that people would like to ask based on the other.
And also I wanted to that sounds great. I'm going to put in the chat the this document here. So thank you so much, Anne, for going through all those slides
too when you get a chance.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
You started screen sharing again.
Yeah, you're able to see it. So we went through that kind of quickly. And for example, you may have wondered about how to test for PDF tags. It's just easier to look at the instructions for how to do that here. This document explains each of those headings that Anne went through, which were questions on the evaluation form, or they're like bullets, they're bulleted items on the accessibility page of the evaluation form. So what I did was I listed that item here, and then why is this important and how do you check for it? So I just want every judge to feel that they're on the even playing field, even if this is brand new to them. For example, the PDF one down here, we go through the steps of how to test if something is tagged, and yes or no will tell us the answer that we need to know as judges. Anne was referring to the fact that when you remediate a document, especially a PDF, you're also looking for the quality of the tags, not just whether or not they're present. So for our competition, we are not going that far. We're just hoping, that people even tag their PDFs if they're meant to be distributed online, if that PDF is meant to be distributed online. So I hope that this document is helpful to you. It is, if you go to our website, the link that I sent out today, you'll find a link to this.
And Carolyn has put the link in the chat, and this is a very good document. If you have no experience in remediating PDFs for 508 compliance, which means fixing the tag tree, the best professional advice is convert the document to another form, preferably HTML, and don't try to do this. Then there are a number of other stages that you can go through, and you have to experiment a bit to find them, to discover any kind of a reasonably economical way to do this. It's very, very time consuming. And if you have even a single really bad mistake, you have to start over.
Yeah,
So,
that's the real difficulty with PDF
Yeah.
tagging, is that it doesn't like save a draft. So if you're working on rebuilding tags in a PDF, which is again not part of our competition task as judges, then you might take the time to start from scratch with a nice structure, and then realize you made a mistake, and well, if you just cannot undo what you just did. So anyway,
instantaneous and permanent change, and
yeah,
so it's a very difficult job, and I learned that the hard way, but it's a good thing to know.
yeah, right before
all
COVID,
learning is good. Some has gained more
yeah,
than others.
right before COVID started in like October through December 2019, I had the opportunity to take a train the trainer certification course offered by Adobe for the government. And I work for a contractor to the government, but I just fit myself into the class, got permission, went every day, and did all of the listened to all of the material, and then did all of the tests and the projects. And I got certified as a accessibility trainer, which is interesting because I didn't get a lot of practice doing it in real life, with COVID happening and things changing. But it's just PDF tagging is complex enough to require like a week-long course. So that's all, I guess, the point of that. So feel free to unmute yourselves and turn on your videos if you can.
And again, Carolyn, maybe you want to stop the screen share now so that we can see each other a little better. And there are some people here I've never had a chance to talk to before, and others I don't know. I am a 39-year member of STC, primarily the Rochester chapter, but I am also a member of the Washington, D.C. Metro Baltimore chapter, and I live actually in Auburn, New York, which is in the Finger Lakes. It's right smack in the middle of New York State. So I am in between Rochester and Syracuse.
Thank you, Anne. Would anyone else like to introduce themselves?
Oh, they're all jumping up to do it.
Yeah.
What awful. Hello, tell me about you. I don't know you very well.
Malou. My name's Malou, and I'm based in New York. One of the reasons why we asked for accessibility training this year was because last year when we were trying to vote for a best of show, we had differences in ideas about what's a good document, and does it need to have accessibility? And we had a point of difference there. Do you want to go back to Carolyn?
Well, we had a PDF that was submitted.
We had two PDF files actually, and and there's one team that thought that their PDF was really wonderful and great and wanted to push that to become the best of show winner. Then there's another team that actually rated their entry as an excellence, so below the distinguished level. But they were saying that it's a better file because it had all the tags and it had accessibility presence in it, whereas the other one was essentially a nice, great document, but it didn't have the tags and all of that. So it was a big point of difference. In the end, the lower rated entry won for best of show because each of us gets only one vote. This is a democratic society where we're allowed one vote, and the lower rated entry was the one that garnered the best of show. But so we felt that we needed to clarify further what accessibility, evaluating for accessibility meant. And I think it's great that we're doing it for the first time with our group, and we need to do it also for the potential entrants, because when they look at our comments, we don't want any surprises, and I would like them to know what to expect.
Yeah, I think our comments they have been a type of training over the years. They have reached the actual entrant that is entering the competition, which is good. And I know that a couple of our companies that presented at our TechCon Roadshow earlier in September, they said that they actually changed their process to include a pass for accessibility. I think one company even hired someone to just do that, to make sure that the materials that they were doing were designed accessibly so they wouldn't have issues later with accessibility, which was really an amazing outcome of just gently educating people through comments. But yeah, hopefully our resources on our website will help them, and then maybe they'll pick up on STC trainings that are done for accessibility too. We're really just pulling in a few. If you're familiar with accessibility, we only have like 6 items to look for. If you're really looking for the accessibility of a document, you're probably looking for a lot more than that and a lot more in depth. So it's just sort of a gentle way to nudge people towards, equating quality with accessibility for all audiences. I think that's the bottom line. And I guess there are some materials that simply can't be accessed by people without sight, but just we're going to do the best we can and consider the majority of cases here.
Of course, if there are print materials in the world that people who are blind cannot see at all, but of course there are services to read those documents to other people if they need access, for example, if they're graduate students. So that too is accessibility, and usually provided by the university or the employer. So there are many aspects to this. Accessibility tends to correlate strongly at minimum and perhaps be directly related to, or even a causal factor for, usability, translatability, localizability, all of the different quality characteristics. They all tend to go together for one reason or another. So it's very worthwhile to pay attention to this. And if you do business with the governments of the United States, Canada, or Australia, you have to, and I think the United Kingdom pretty much also, it's required. Others who might be willing to say who they are and what their experiences are.
Okay, I'll go. Jamie Sagan. I'm in San Antonio, Texas. This is my first time being involved with this committee, so I'm looking forward to becoming a judge. I've been with STC since 2007. Right now, I'm the current president of the South Central Texas chapter and the treasurer of the IDL SIG. I'm also involved with the CAC, the Community Affairs Committee. So I'm active at both the community and the society level. So I'm happy to be here.
Thank you,
Bright light
Jamie.
turned on the day that Jamie joined STC.
Yeah, I don't know if Jamie had any bandwidth to do any more than she was already doing. So somehow she found a little bit, but we're not going to overwhelm her.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Well, I've managed the competition in Rochester a couple of times and worked on the criteria for the international competition, but I haven't worked with this particular competition before. So how about anybody who's not got a camera on? Shy,
Yeah, okay.
and I mean, not to be
Come on, Jackie.
but I don't talk to Jackie very often, and it's a pleasure to see her tonight.
Hello.
Hello.
I've been a member of STC since 1983.
Me too. Same
Um,
here. Yes.
Yep, so a long time, and I am currently for STC. I am the co-chair of the Education Committee. So be looking for webinar requests from you. And John was one of my former colleagues last year. This is my third year chairing the Education Committee. I am also the book review editor for the Technical Communication Journal. So if you want to do book reviews, get in touch with me. Free books is the bait that I grab you with. I am also doing, the September-October issue of Intercom is a special guest edited issue on strategic thinking and technical communication that Dr. Liz Herman and myself have done. And I am working on a 2023 special issue of Intercom on visual communication. So we're going to be looking for authors. So if you all have an interest to write an article, let me know. And what else do I do for STC? I'll be doing a presentation on my STC Summit 2022 on imposter syndrome for the IDL SIG in November. And I think that's probably all I can think of. I don't know, I'm forgetting something, but I don't know how to say no to STC. That's my main problem. I can say no to other things, but for some reason, STC just always gets a yes. But I have been also in the far past, I was chair of the International Summit Awards, which was the competition up until the SCC retired it. So I have a lot of years of experience with the competition and reformatting it and such. So that's me.
Thank you for doing the, especially the Education Committee. That's a lot of work and it's much needed.
It is a lot of work. We need courses.
I know. And
I hear you. I know. Jackie got me in May and asked me to start to build one, and I just haven't done it yet. I know.
You can start with webinars, but we really need courses. So if anybody has courses in their pocket, please reach out. We'll take anybody.
Who else would like to introduce themselves? It's nice to have, because after this, you'll be in groups of 3, but you won't really be in this big group until December. So
I don't know Tom Myers. I'm picking on
He's
people I don't
waving.
know.
I was just going to say, I'll say something since I'm.
Oh,
the
and
coaching
your presentation the other night was so wonderful. Thank you for it.
So I'm Phoebe Forio and I'm in Atlanta, and I've been with STC since, I don't know, 87 or 88. I don't know, a long time. And I got involved with the Atlanta chapter in full force, probably in the 2013 maybe. And I got involved with Malu and this competition. And so I've been doing this for the last 5 or 6 years, I guess. So anyway, this is my first time being the judging manager, but I've been a judge and a lead judge for a while. And
yeah, Phoebe was long ready for this role, so I really appreciate her stepping up.
You know, I think my first effort was to redo the assessment forms, because those were not very good. And let's see, I was president of Atlanta STC for, I don't know, is it 10 years? No, I'm just kidding. It's probably only 5, but it seemed like a lot longer. And I
know the feeling. Yes, from being a church treasurer. I think it was 8 years, but it might have been 9.
Yeah, it just seemed like, you know, could somebody please take over? And I found someone, and she's doing a great job, I think. So that's good.
I don't know Tom. I don't know Rebecca. I barely know Mike. I know Becky, but probably very few other people do. So
I do have a question for you though on accessibility.
Yes. Oh yes.
So if the documents that we generate from Flare, and when you open the document, it's got a little banner at the top, and it says this document claims compliance with, I don't know, whatever.
WCAG, WCAG.
It doesn't say that. Let me see if I have one handy real quick, and I can tell you what it says. It says PDF/A standard.
Yeah.
Is that
so? Right. So there's a separate standard for PDF. It's like an international standard for PDF. It's actually, I think, Is it made by Adobe?
It wasn't given, I think, to the public.
Yeah, Adobe created it, but then like it's yeah, given to the public, as Anne said. So the PDF standard, so you can have an international standard for accessibility for World Wide Web Consortium, but that's not going to specifically cover the issues of PDF. PDF is like a special, almost proprietary format. Like Anne said, it's kind of based on HTML, but it's proprietary. So apparently that standard is applied to your Flare output. So I guess you're producing PDF. Huh?
And that counts as PDF accessible content or accessible PDF content.
You would assume so. All you need to do is look at your PDF that you output from Flare, and you could just like go to the file menu and properties and see if it's yes or no untagged.
It says yes.
Okay,
so,
yeah, I mean,
yes, okay.
that's probably what your company says is okay. I mean, you know, a PDF can be tagged poorly, right? But it can, you know, I guess it passed some checker. Maybe there's
I mean, we do
something built in.
The screen readers and things like that to check online help, and I'm guessing they did the PDFs as well. I don't know.
Well,
I wasn't part of that
right.
effort,
Like automating PDF accessibility is hard. I think it really has to it has to be built into the product, like it has to be built into the document. You know, you add the alt text. At least you have to remediate it by hand. But maybe your system forces you to like add alt text to an image, for example.
Well, we do that. I mean, we have that is we get error messages if there's
Yeah.
alt text missing.
It sounds like, you know, they're already addressing accessibility in your system in Flare, either through Flare as it comes from MadCap, or is it still called MadCap? Anyway, yeah. Or is it, you know, is it something that they do custom
utility that we built in or something? I don't know.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a pretty good situation there.
And then the other question I have is when it says the text, the font size, whatever is appropriate for people with low vision. If the page is resizable, like you can blow it up or, you know, up or down or whatever. So if you look at the document at say 75% or whatever, it fits in the page and it looks a little small, but if you can change it, then does that count as, sure, the text is whatever the text is?
Yeah, I think it's going to be hard.
To...
It's going to be hard for us to quantify like the subjective nature of this particular item in our criteria.
Right.
I guess, you know, especially since we're not running a checker, like a contrast checker to make sure, although that's mostly for color, but for the size of text, I don't know. It's just a visual. I think that if you can zoom it out, then that will really help you. But you're probably going to see websites that have really tiny text with like a colored background, and that would be an egregious problem. But
right.
You know, so I would say that particular one, it's really hard for us to quantify it as judges. And that, you know, you might point out that, you know, at 75% zoom, you were able to see this quite easily. But the nice thing about magnification software is it really does that for you. So if you're the kind of person with low vision that has some sort of helper agent like a magnification software, then you're going to be able to make it so that you can read it. So
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, Malu, I think I have to unmute you.
I think you can. I think she has to do it.
Yeah,
now.
I clicked ask to.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I had muted you.
A lot of the entries we have some video component to it. Is there a rule as to whether videos have to have captions, no matter how short or long they are?
a good question. So some videos are just show me videos that like almost like an animated GIF, and those don't have any words. So those are like the easiest
Yeah.
because they don't
do
need
you-
captions.
Do you need to have is it good to have a caption for that, or?
No, you don't need a, I mean,
They're wonderful equalizers, because basically that nobody can figure out those, so it's really fair. Also, I cause them to be deleted quite frequently. And I think we could maybe show all these in a sequence. So people could get the point, or else skip it. But anything basically that is an equalizer is fair. And if nobody can perceive it very well, that's highly unfortunate. But for example, suppose somebody issued a very long document in an 8 or 9 point type. Well, that would be very hard for any of us to read. And were you to magnify it, it would cause you to see a very small portion of the text on the screen at any one time. This would be inconvenient for everyone. It isn't exactly that it's inaccessible. It's just inconvenient for everyone. And so that is, but that's an equalizer, and it's, I suppose you could call it accessible, but you wouldn't call it easy to read.
yeah, I would say that if a video has spoken text, spoken words in it, that you should be able to click the CC button and see those words on the screen. Or, you know, if there is something built into the text around the video that says, you know, explains what you're about to see, or provides an alternative, a text alternative to the video. That's if the video is like inside of something else, like I don't know, on a website, it's just helpful to have the option to turn on captions. And there's lots of different ways to do that. But a very short video, I don't know if it would, if there's spoken words in it and there's no captions, that then you have to note that there's no captions for this. I can't get any captions for this, you know.
But if it's an animated GIF, wouldn't it have alt text?
Yeah, right. Alt text.
You could just put a,
Yes,
you know,
you're right. Alt text, animated GIFs do insert as an image, and but you can add an alt text for animated GIF. Yeah, exactly.
And it would be a kindness to do that, because then anyone would be able to know what the images were, which they'll never be able to see anyway. So it would be a kindness. I would love to have that. I've torn them apart sometimes. That's very hard to do. There's
Kindness.
thousands of video frames for even a very short one, but I've torn them apart sometimes to see what was actually in there.
Yeah, sometimes, you know, there's this concept of long description. So in alt text, if you had a very complex image, like a common example is the org chart for a company, and you don't want to have to, in your alt text, list every person, you might have a page on your website that just lists in sort of tabular format or list format, you know, this person is the boss, this piece of people are under it. And so that is a separate page. So all you need to do in your alt text is link to that page. So there's different ways of managing your, you know, complex alt text or captions separately. That's what transcript files are for as well. And would anyone else like to throw in any of their expertise in this area, or have you ever worked with this kind of thing at your job?
Or just who you are and what your interests are.
Michael?
Hi, I'm Mike. Been with the SEC since 2016. Did the judging for about 3 or 4 of those years. I had a question. So, are we getting any entries that are sourced from CMSs?
Well, we have. I mean, if Confluence is kind of like a CMS.
Yeah,
it is a CMS.
Yeah.
Content management system. So I don't know, Malu, do we have any? Last year we had that safety video from New York City Safety Department or something, and it was probably produced in a CMS, or it's hard to know. It's going to say it on your entry form when you receive the entry, what tools were used to create it, so you could evaluate that answer yourself. What point were you going to make?
Yeah, because you know, in my line of work, we use HighSpot as our CMS, and the training tool. And as much as we'd like to put WCAG and compliance and accessibility features on it, it just doesn't let you.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I'm just wondering if we get entries like that,
Yeah, I
should
would
they be
imagine.
penalized?
Right. No, the penalization, I thought we kind of covered that in the beginning, that we're not really trying to penalize people. We're trying to point out the absence.
Yeah.
If it is absent, to let them know it's absent, because they might not have ever thought of that before. Maybe, in a perfect world, they would be like, oh, I can't use that CMS anymore. It's not producing compliant output, and I care about every audience. And so you pressure your boss. But that's there, it's true. I mean, even like in design, like Anne was saying, it's very difficult sometimes when you're going to PDF, you have to kind of take some steps first in InDesign before you create the PDF, if you want it to be accessible. But we're hoping with this competition to sort of point out where accessibility may be present and where it may be lacking. But you're right, it's possible there's no way to add it because of the tool that they're using. And so hopefully they're not doing any business at all with the US government.
Okay. That's a good point.
Yeah.
It's like they're really restricting themselves. So we can't fix them, but hopefully we can point out. But very good point, Michael. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to bring up, have you done any accessibility at your job or ever had to remediate a document or change anything, or are you an old hand?
Yeah, I mean, when I worked at two jobs prior, we used Flare, so we definitely baked accessibility into the output. But now that in my current job, we're using a CMS. I mean, there's just no provisions for it. I mean, unless you manually code it in HTML. And none of my guys are willing to do that. So.
Right. Yeah. Well, the US government has a law that, anything produced with government money has to be accessible. It has to meet Section 508 standards. And so it's just hard to sometimes bridge the gap between that law, which has been in existence since like 1986, although it started in 1973 under Nixon, but it sort of became with like curbs had to be cut. There has to be a ramp for your wheelchair and stuff like that. And then like 1986, we started having Section 508 and electronic standards. And it's just hard sometimes to bridge the gap between that and like the output. Not every company wants to do it, but Target is getting sued. All of these lawsuits are happening all over this country. Domino's was recently sued and the blind person won because they could not order a pizza. So it's like, you don't want to exclude, just willfully exclude because it's hard. If hopefully what we're doing with this competition is just showing where it's easy. And there could be a very good reason why there's no accessibility built in. It could be totally separate from any kind of government need or any kind of university need. And, it's not our role to say, that, they did something wrong. We just want to sort of nudge, show where these are our standards, see how you meet them. Anyone else want to speak up before we?
I'll introduce myself.
Hi, Rebecca.
Hi, Rebecca Young. I've been a member of STC since 1999. I have been a judge for many years. I don't exactly know how many, but it's not every single year that I've volunteered, but I have a strong interest in design. I work primarily on tech writing for the Department of Defense. I had a brief stint at the State Department, and then now I'm back with the DoD and trying to get them to admit that somebody might need accessibility. For a long time, they just denied it, that everybody in the military is able-bodied. And now that we've been through some global conflicts, they're having to admit that, yeah, no, some of these people need support, and we count them as one of us, but it's still a struggle getting them to do what they need to do. They kind of give lip service to Section 508, and I'm trying to do what I can to just stay current on things by participating.
That's excellent. You write some of our best comments, some of our best judging comments come out of Rebecca. So I really appreciate her. She was a judge for the DC competition before she came over with me to the Alliance competition. So I appreciate you making the time, Rebecca. All right, Jackie's dropping off. Another STC meeting.
No,
That's how it goes. Thank you, Jackie. Yeah, I don't want to keep everyone on for no reason. I just think it's nice to have this time and to make sure that we're clear on our charges. So entries are still coming in. We don't have as many as last year. Your load will not be as much as last year. It might only be 2 entries. But we will be distributing them, I think, by next week sometime.
Next week.
Yeah. And Malu is mailing out the print manuals. I think you have 2 print manuals or something, 2 or 3. We have 2 or 3. And so the rest are electronic, and we'll have a page for every judging team to download those documents, and they'll be password protected and just for your team. And we'll have more information about that soon.
And thank you, Carolyn and Anne, for preparing this accessibility training for us. We promise not to use NA, not applicable for accessibility items anymore.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, yeah. Trying to expand our judging comments to have more information in them. So yeah, I really appreciate it.
Hey, Carolyn, I've got a question. It's not really about accessibility. And for those of you who don't know me, I don't know how such a thing can happen. But I know I've been an STC member since early 80s, someplace. I had STC stuff in the 70s too. But I remember when I was, my first time judging was at Bentley College outside Boston, where we were assembling boxes of paper manuals to send out to judges. I mean, everything was on paper. It was a lot of fun since then. But so one of my questions is, in my company, we don't do a lot of screenshots. And we're a software company, but we really don't do screenshots, right? Especially not to, because they cost a ton of money when you have to get not only the right screen and the right language with the right data on it sometimes, because sometimes you're showing something, the data in the format it's going to look like to the user. And so we just don't do it. I mean, they have the software. We describe it and tell them exactly what to look for and kind of where to look for it and those kinds of things. But it's not, we just don't have pictures. And is that, I mean, that can sometimes draw some, geez, there's an awful lot of text on this page kind of comments, but.
Well, one thing about your documentation, which I'm very familiar with, is that your pages are pretty short. And you do, on most of them, have sort of like a workflow diagram about showing where in that workflow graphically this procedure falls, which I think every judge loves when they get a metadata document. So I feel like, that's enough, and you have a good reason. So does a screen capture make something more accessible? I know that's a pretty philosophical question. Anne said no.
No, for a long time. In the early 80s, when I first started doing this, the equipment I was writing about was very expensive and very large. So I had no access to it unless I drove to Rochester from Auburn, which is 62 miles one way, and went into Eastman Kodak Company or Bausch & Lomb to use the equipment. It was necessary in those days to use images, and frequently they were screen images because these were beginning to have screen interfaces, and they had command line and front panel switch interfaces, but they were becoming screen oriented. So it was necessary to include the pictures, and it was frequently necessary for the customers to have the pictures too, for similar reasons. They wanted to think about this piece of equipment when they were at their desk. They might have to go a half a mile through their company's building to get to the equipment, so they really relied on the manual. But as equipment became smaller and as programs became available on floppy disk drives that we could place in IBM PC computers, I changed my strategy to causing the conversation to be between the user and the piece of equipment or the piece of software rather than the user and the manual. And I became very interested in that conversational approach when I was writing about the digital cameras for Eastman Kodak Company in the early days of digital cameras in the early years of this current century. I think that I would much rather have my customers and my users having a dialogue with the software than having a dialogue with the manual. I think that documentation is best, which fades into the nearest product. And so therefore I eschew these images as much as possible, because I think that they really get in the way of the conversation between the customer and the equipment or the software, whatever it might be, or some combination.
Thank you. Now I got to go and take out some screen captures out of my documentation tomorrow. Thanks, Anne.
Yeah, I encouraged a young man the other day to limit them, and he said he did, because he agreed with my philosophy. But he said, if you think I have too many, then just take them out. Well, I don't think he has too many. I think he has struck the perfect balance. This guy is a terrific collaborator. What a very capable person. Joy to meet him. And I think he's got just the right balance, but it's not, he doesn't have a lot of images, and he made them nice and big so you can actually see them. That's so helpful.
Well, thank you, Anne. And we are just about at 8 o'clock, so I definitely don't want to keep you over. But I really am glad that you all made the time to be here tonight, and that you joined us in our passion for accessibility just a bit, and are going to experiment a bit with that as you judge your entries this year. So thank you so much for your time. And I will be in touch by email. Feel free to contact me anytime.
Thank y'all. Yeah, y'all
Thank
have
you
a
so
good
much,
night.
Anne. You
Take care,
too, Jamie.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, I think I'm going to click end.
You're gonna
Bye.
Thank
now.
you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, Joseph. Bye.